Should your approach shot be hit with underspin, topspin, or flat? Well, you're going to have to get out and practice approach shots and see what works best with your style. Ideally, whatever style you choose, you've got to strive to get a quick jump forward. So when you're on the baseline and you're in that baseline rally, you should be thinking short ball, short ball. When's that short ball coming? Because statistically speaking, the next ball will be short. It's very difficult to keep the ball deep consistently, even for top players. Now, if you own all three shots, if you own underspin, topspin, and flat, you can mix it up according to your opponent. As an example, let's say your opponent has a full Western grip. Now, players that have full Western grips don't particularly like balls hit down below their knees. So then use your underspin approach because the ball skids and stays low. Now, if your opponent has a continental grip, now continental players don't typically like balls up around the shoulders. So use your topspin because topspin, the ball's going to bounce up more. Now, if you're playing someone who has trouble setting up, a slower player, use your flat approach because the flat approach has more velocity, more pace, which forces your opponent to set up quick. Underspin approach shot, the racket is moving from high to low, and the racket face is laid back maybe 10, 20 degrees. If your underspin approach shots are going in the net, it could be one of two things. Number one, you could be stopping when you hit the ball. Remember, if you come up to hit your approach and you stop, the upper body tends to go down, and the racket goes down and you simply drive the ball in the net. Remember, you've got to hit through this shot. You want to keep moving as you hit. So when you come up to hit the approach, you hit it and don't stop, keep moving in. Now, the other reason could be that you're chopping down too severely and the racket face is vertical when you're hitting the ball. If you're starting high and you're coming down with a vertical racket, you're going to simply drive it in the net. Remember, when you swing high to low, the racket face has to be open a little bit, 10 to 20 degrees on the underspin approach. Okay, the two key points to remember to prevent underspin approach shots going in the net. Number one, don't stop, run through the shot. So when you hit it, don't stop, just keep going in. Number two, the racket's beveled back 10 to 20 degrees. Your underspin approach shots are going long. You have to remember that the racket face is only open 10 to 20 degrees when you're making contact. Many players have this notion that the racket is laid back way too much, and that just simply sends the ball floating. If the racket's laid back like that, the ball's just going to go up and float. So you have to think consciously close the face as you swing forward. So as you swing forward, close up the face so it's only 10 to 20 degrees laid back. You don't want to be like this. Now, another reason may be that you're swinging too horizontal. Remember, for every degree that you lay the racket back, you have to increase the angle at which you swing down. So if you're open 10 or 20 degrees, you have to get the racket up. You've got to get the racket up and then swing down as you hit. That will tend to keep the ball lower. Now, theoretically, you could have the racket face open, say 45 degrees, on an approach shot, but that means you're going to have to increase the angle now. Remember, every degree you open it, you have to get the racket up higher. So now you're going to be way up here if you're open 45 degrees and you've got to come down. So remember those 2 points. If your underspin approach shots are going long, you may have to consciously close the face of the racket a little, only 10 or 20 degrees, or bring the racket up higher. That will prevent the ball from floating long. The racket is moving from low to high, and the racket is vertical at contact. Remember, you're hitting the equator of the ball and brushing up. Now, the grips that I recommend are Eastern and semi-Western. Okay, remember, to find our grips, we go to the racket handle. For an Eastern forehand, we're going to put the X's on number 3. Eastern forehand. Then for an Eastern backhand, the X's would be on number 1. Now for a semi-Western forehand, we're going to put the X's on number 4. And notice how the racket face is closed. Excellent for topspin. Now for a semi-Western backhand, we're going to go to number 2 on this side. And again, notice the racket face is closed. Excellent for your topspin approach shot. Topspin approach shots are going in the net. You're failing to get the racket low enough. Remember, wherever you're going to hit the ball, whether it's knee high, waist high, or shoulder height, you have to drop the racket a good foot below the contact point before you swing forward and up. So remember, when you come up to hit that approach shot, you come up, drop the rear leg down a little bit, make sure keep the hitting shoulder loose so that racket falls a good foot below the contact point before swinging forward. Same thing on the backhand side. When you come up, drop the rear leg down, the rear shoulder down a little lower. That'll ensure net clearance on your topspin approach shots. Okay, 2 key points to remember to prevent your topspin approaches in the net. Number 1, you've got to drop the racket below the ball, a good foot below the contact point. Wherever that contact point is, get that racket a foot below. Number 2, drop the rear leg and the rear hitting shoulder. Keep the rear hitting shoulder loose so the racket drops down. Sharp enough low to high angle, you will not generate sufficient topspin. As an example, let's say you're swinging on this type of an angle. This is the low point of your backswing and this is your finish. Now, of course, that's low to high, so you're going to generate some topspin. But if you increase the angle, let's say you start swinging like this is the low point of your swing and this is your finish. So instead of swinging more like this, you've increased the angle, you're going up more. If you do that, you're going to generate more spin on the ball. Now, when you increase the RPMs on the ball and the ball starts to spin faster forward, you create more air pressure on top of the ball. So it pushes the ball down sooner before it sails long. To make your topspin approaches go long is that the racket face is open when you're hitting the ball. Remember, of course, you want to be vertical when you're hitting your topspin approach. Now, the mistake usually happens on the player's backswing. Well, I'll show you what I mean. From the ready position, the racket face is closed. Now, sometimes when players come back, they drop the elbow into the body. When the elbow drops in, notice the racket face is open. Now, you have to close the racket face on the forward swing to be vertical when you hit the ball. 2 key points to remember to prevent your topspin approaches going long. Increase the angle of your swing. When you increase that angle, you're going to create more RPMs, more spin. It's going to pull the ball down quicker. Number 2, keep the elbow up and away from the body. Remember, if the elbow drops in, it's going to open the racket face and possibly send the ball long. Keep the elbow up and away.